Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Pop Culture Podcast. I'm Tyson Popplestone. It's a little play on the words pop, if you hadn't picked that up already. I had a friend call me the other day. He goes, I've just understood pop culture. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, Popplestone. I go, mate, yeah. That's why I called it pop culture. I thought it was a fun little name. I thought it was blatantly obvious, I'm going to be honest. So, look, don't be ashamed if you didn't pick up the reference to pop culture and my surname. Maybe you don't know the reference to my surname or pop culture very well, but that's where the little play on words came from. It's great to have you here nonetheless, even if you didn't know that. It's a tough time of the year this time, isn't it, fellas? We've got to pretend once again that we don't care about Married at First Sight, but we do. And I think it's time that, like me, you just confess it. You just make it known. Hey, we like it. The last 6 seasons, I've tried to tell my wife that I'm not a fan. She kept catching me poking around the kitchen. We've got a little gap between our kitchen and our dining room. She just kept looking over. My head was peeking around. She's like, what are you doing? I go, I'm not interested in the show. She goes, I didn't accuse you of being interested. I'm just wondering what you're doing. I said, well, I was listening to the storyline because there's nothing else to do. I thought I'd just poke my head around and see what the person looked like. For 6 years, she said to me, babe, just come and sit on the couch and enjoy it with me. I was like, you really think I would stoop to that level? You really think I'm going to do it, do you? She goes, I know you quite well, and I think you're closer than you think to it. I said, well, you don't know me at all. And then she got home the other day and I was on the couch watching it because there was nothing else on is the thing. And the storylines are very, they're very alluring. They drag you in. There's drama. That's what the problem is. There's so much drama. I like hearing people lie straight to the camera. That's the thing. No one's there for love, are they? Let's be honest. I love the pre-Married at First Sight audition interviews where they go, now what do you want to be on the show for? People go, I just feel like I deserve love and this seems to be the right environment to find it. Because you're not allowed to say, I'm just trying to get a little bit famous. Yeah. I've got a modelling career that's not taken off very well, and I thought if I could just be on this show and get revealed to a couple more people with my tits out, then maybe I could get a couple more gigs. That's not going to get you on the show. Even though it's the honest answer, it's not going to get you on the show. And people I know women are very enticed by the storyline. That's why 50 Shades of Grey is so attractive. I'm not sure what it is to me that drags me on board. I think I'm attracted to the idea that I'm just being lied to by so many people, and the editing is so good that it makes everyone look like just a complete nutcase. I had a friend who was on The Bachelor a few years ago, and he told me that the first night is recorded over 2 days, and from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., they start recording, and they give you a beer an hour. So by the time 12 a.m. rolls around, you've had 12 beers, you're exhausted physically, emotionally, you're half cut, more than half cut. I'd be half cut after 2 beers, so I'd be unconscious in the corner. I'd be a terrible contestant if I had to live up to that standard. But I always wonder, how is it that so many people get so emotional, so fiery, so upset, and just say the dumbest shit, and then you realise they're 12 beers deep and she's only 37 kilos. You give 12 beers to a 37 kilo lady, that's 3/4 of her body weight is just beer. There's going to be some wild things that are being said. And I think that's what makes the show so good. And I like it as well because the producers are honest about the fact that fame is the goal. And though it's covered up with a disguise of love and attraction, they every now and then they'll pair two people together that they know is going to be an absolute disaster. This year, I'm not sure of the couple's name, but there's one chick who, based on what I've seen in the first couple of episodes, she needs to see a counsellor about it. She's a sex addict, and that's fine. That's fine. But what I'm saying is she's not going to find a long and fulfilling relationship because the man that she's with just wants to have a conversation. But have you ever tried to have sex and have a conversation at the same time? It's like drumming and singing. It's a very difficult endeavour unless you've had a lot of practice. How do you keep that rhythm? While you focus on the hips, you realise your mouth's not working anymore. You're like, I can't hold a conversation and do this at the same time. You're saying to move my hips in the wrong way? I'm very confused. So they're my favourite couple, just based on how different they are. And I feel bad for them because the producers have clearly set them up to fail. But the entertainment factor of that is just glorious. It's wonderful to see. And there's something encouraging about seeing people at their worst as well, isn't it? You see people at their worst and you go, you know what, my life's not so bad. All I've got to do is go and do the dishes because my wife's just cooked a lovely Indian meal. And these guys are having a fight and they won't touch each other before they go to sleep. Granted, I'm not a huge toucher after an argument either, so I shouldn't be too judgmental of that. But fellas, I think it's important for us just to gather around. We've got to get together. We've got to be open about the fact that, hey, look, we love MAFS, and that's okay. If I have to go to one more work meeting, if I have to go and see any group of mates where we all pretend that we don't not like MAFS, but we just know the storyline based on the fact our wife watches it and she plays it a little bit loud, it's, I just can't do that anymore. Fellas, we could even have a bit of a bro rule. We can pretend that we don't enjoy it, but hey, let your lady know you're into it a little bit. Go home, flick it on. Ask questions about the sex addiction of this lady. Ask what you could be doing better to give her the desire for sex this bad. Because I can tell you, based on 11 years of my best work, it's not a highly requested thing in my house at the moment. I mean, you shouldn't say that, should you? You can't just be saying that on your podcast about your very beautiful wife. She listens to this every now and then. She'd be disappointed that I didn't edit that out. But that's the rule. That's the rule. You don't edit it. You can't delete history is what they say. I'm not sure who said that, but it felt like the right thing to say. So anyway, we've got what do they call it? The love ceremony on Sunday. We've got to find out which couples are staying, which couples are going. It's honestly mind-blowing how well they end each episode and each ad break. I reckon that would be one of the hardest jobs to do. Because truly, I've tried to edit podcasts here and there before. It's a very, very difficult task. To be editing a TV show like that on a weekly basis to try and keep the audience not only engaged, but emotionally captivated would be very tricky. So a big shout out to the producers. It's actually a work of art now I think about it all round. I think the producers are what would you call them? I'm trying to think of a fantastic artist that's a little bit... I'm not sure who it is. I was listening to a Rick Rubin book last night, so we'll just say they're the Rick Rubins of the Married at First Sight television show. Very strange that we're not a fan of arranged marriages, but this show is so popular. That's what I find very interesting about it. We're not a fan necessarily of arranged marriage. I think it's disrespectful, but when it comes to Married at First Sight, no, that's our exception, isn't it? Married at First Sight, you can get married at first sight as long as it's for our entertainment, but don't be doing it for religious reasons. That's when it's too far. We can't escape from the fact that our little secular society loves loves to delve back into what we deem archaic. Okay, we're not doing arranged marriages anymore, all right? Can we come up with an agreement that we all agree that arranged marriage is a bad thing? What if we've got a real good TV show idea? Well, that's the one exception, all right? What we could do, Married at First Sight, will make a shitload out of this. Honestly, that's one of the most brilliant ideas that I've ever heard. What if we have a show where you can have 7 wives? Oh, shut up, Peter. Just because your marriage is broken down doesn't give you the right just to try and marry every woman in the room right now. Oh, come on there. It's a bloody good idea, I'll tell you. That was a weird little tangent. But you know what I'm saying, don't you? It's funny what you make exceptions for. If you're looking for love, don't go to Married at First Sight. Looking for love on Married at First Sight is like looking for health at McDonald's. Maybe you'll find it, but it'll be accidental. You don't go to McDonald's for the apple quarters. You get that because you've just given your kid a Happy Meal and you feel bad about their heart condition. So you go, oh, well, look at those apples. We give him a little apple. That should clear up all the crap in his heart muscles. If you leave Married at First Sight with love and with a good relationship, it's honestly like going into McDonald's and just leaving with a bag of apples. Yeah, be honest, you weren't expecting it. Everyone's surprised. It seems like the wrong way to do it, but nonetheless, it's a positive outcome. So, hey, with all that said, I wish you the best of luck, especially to the man who's married to the lady with the sex addiction, because he doesn't look like a man who's interested in sex very much, not based on his physical appearance. I just mean he's got more depth to him than that, which is, it's usually not something you say about the man, is it? Usually the man is the one who's quite blatant about his sex addiction. I'm not sure. I wonder how many long-term relationships have a sex-addicted husband. I feel as though that's a recipe for a high turnover in marriage, because I know from time to time I'll get home late, and if I'm looking for a little bit of action and I'm told no, well, no's the answer. You can't just be going, oh, come on, babe, I'm addicted. Feed my habit. It doesn't work as good as an argument it seems to be in my mind. It just doesn't quite work out as you'd expect it to. So sex addicts, hey, may the Lord be with you, as they say. May the Lord be with you on your endeavor to find love. May your full desires be satisfied, but may you also have time to have a conversation with your with you, man. MAFS, I'm impressed. The producers or the judges on the shows have never said anything that we didn't know, have they? I think it's amazing what you can say with a face of sincerity. You can say nothing, but as long as you look sincere, it sounds quite beautiful. I love the sex therapist one, the Spanish one, because she's never said anything that I didn't know, but she says it in a way that makes her sound profound. So a couple will sit down in front of her and go, hey, look, we've got couples. All she wants is sex and I want a conversation. And she'll go, So what I'm hearing is there's a disconnect between your desires and expectations. And they go, wow, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And she goes, yeah, I've seen this before. What we have to do, we have to come to some mutual ground on our And I'm sitting there going, no shit. Like, yes, but you can't just come on TV and go, all right, hey, look, Pete, she wants to have a little cheeky root twice a week, but look, Sally, he also wants a conversation. So, all right, can we make up some kind of calendar? You have to make it sound a little more profound because we're there for love, and love is a beautiful and deep subject. You can't be saying have a little root. Can you have to have a Spanish chick talking about the miscommunication between the two? And then you've got old Johnny. Old Johnny comes out, and it's the same thing. Johnny's turned into a hard ass the last couple of years. I reckon what he's done is read 50 Shades of Grey, and he's read a little bit about the attraction that women have to a highly powerful man, a man who's got some conviction, who can stand up for his values and beliefs. And there's a couple of seasons at the start there, based on what I heard from the kitchen, not because I was watching it, ladies. There's a couple of seasons there where he'd just get walked over. He'd go, well, I think you guys might be able to, navigate a couple of these issues in your relationship. But then every now and then he'll get the finger up like this and he'll go, hey, you guys have got to stop talking. And I've watched it with a sister-in-law. I've watched it with my wife. I've watched it with my mother. I've watched it a lot. And almost in unison, when John gets a little bit powerful, there's a general consensus exemplified by the, oh, in the room. Every woman goes, oh. And all of a sudden, John, who's, physically, he's not an overly powerful man, becomes super attractive. Very straight, fellas. Remember that. If you're not overly good looking, just be a man of conviction. It seems don't be too good where you'll never listen to the opinions of others. The truth is, I'm probably the wrong person to get advice from. Don't listen to anything I'm saying because I don't know what I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? When you're blessed with these looks, you don't have to think like that. You can just walk out, do a little wink, and hope they don't notice the wrinkles. That's a joke, in case you're wondering. It's got nothing to do with my looks. I don't focus on the other stuff. It's just not a priority for me. Do you know what I mean? But I was at a school a couple of years ago. I'm 35, turn 36 next month, and the wrinkles are becoming a slight problem around my eyes. I remember I stood up in front of a classroom one day and I just gave the opening instructions, and I heard a Year 7 girl go, this guy has so many wrinkles. I said, well, hey, first of all, listen, I don't really want to be here that much. I'm here purely for the paycheck, which is against everything I believe in, but I'm just trying to navigate the other parts of my life to balance up so that I can get out of here and not hear that kind of triggering information. She goes, no, she goes, honestly though, like, do you use skin treatment? And she starts telling me, like, look, sir, botox it's really, it's very gender neutral these days, men and women. I said, look, do you know my name? What's my name? She goes, I'm not sure yet. I said, well, you shouldn't be telling me that it's time for Botox yet. Wait till you found out my name is Mr. Popplestone before you start recommending skin treatment to me, is all I'm trying to say. I actually left the house this morning feeling as though I looked quite good. And for you to tell me now that my skin, like the only skin that I have to walk around in. One sec, I've got to adjust my foot. Did you get nervous then when I stood up? I don't know if it was the start of this episode or last time where I told you that I do these podcasts without pants on, but you've just found out I'm lying. I've got shorts on. But how do you navigate that? Because I think there's certain elements of the old education system where you can have a strap and smack people on the hands, which would be beneficial for things like that. Because it'd be nice to just, if your feelings have been hurt in just general conversation in a classroom, for you to be able to, physically manipulate a student to stop speaking because it hurt your feelings a little bit. I'm not sure. Maybe it just revealed how insecure I am. There's a lot you got to work on. And truthfully, schools are a place where if you're an insecure person, you're in the wrong spot. Because as a teacher, especially as a casual relief teacher, you got to cop it. You got to be made of something special if you walk into a classroom with 30 kids who view you as an opportunity just to do whatever you want to do for the day. They're going to be pushing limits. They're going to be pushing boundaries, which is frustrating when all you want to do is go in there and, work on your own thing. I used to go in with a laptop and hotspot and hope that the kids wouldn't talk to me so I could just work on the things I really wanted to work on, which is probably a sign that I was in the wrong industry. I look at my wife, who's a teacher, and she's very passionate about it. She'd go into a room with a computer and a detailed lesson plan on it. And I would always do what I've learned is called a 6-step lesson plan, where as you take the final 6 steps into the classroom, you go, all right, well, what are we going to do today? I remember I got a job at a Christian school about 3 years ago. I won't name the school because I don't want to bring them, I don't want to bring any negative attention to their name. Though, no, I won't. And I remember one particular lesson, I had a grade 6 class, and I was the RE teacher, which was even more funny, to be honest. Also, very strange to tell people you're an RE teacher in 2023. It was 2020, I think 2020 at the time. It doesn't generate a whole heap of respect because RE teacher, it's kind of like, I've been an RE teacher and a PE teacher. And whenever you tell someone that that's the job you're doing, they all seem to look at you with the view that, okay, look, let's all just acknowledge the fact that this isn't an essential part of the curriculum. I go, no, it's very important. They go, hey, look at me. Like, if there's one thing that's going to get taken off the school curriculum, especially in Victoria, it's going to be RE. All right, and PE, let's not pretend it's work. That's always a funny conversation when I speak to PE teachers. And I go, hey, how have you been? They go, I'm just so busy. I go, mate, let's be honest. You teach kids how to kick a footy. If you're getting stressed about it, you need to take a breath. That's on you. That's on you. It's amazing the things that people take very seriously. I learned this through stand-up comedy. The stand-up comedy world's funny because you think everyone's just funny, but it's not. Like, it's a very serious industry. People are very passionate about getting laughs. If they get off stage and they've bombed, they haven't got any laughs, it's a very depressing experience. And always a very fun one to witness too, if I'm completely honest. It's not fun when you're the person who's bombed, and there's plenty of those opportunities as well. I guess it's just wherever your heart, wherever your energy sort of is directed, then there's obviously a negative impact on at least your ego if things don't go as well as what you want. I used to be a distance runner, and it was always frustrating when you would finish a race and you just got your ass kicked. So I probably shouldn't laugh at, my fellow comedians, based on the fact that I also am one. Get up on stage and bomb from time to time, and you get off the stage, your mates are just pissing themselves laughing, and you're like, there's nothing funny about this. This is not fun at all. Anyway. Do you see, Aussies, you'll know this one. Maybe it is Victorians. I don't know if it's a national show. See, Karl Stefanovic is now saying that he's not getting the 5th jab. Which is, I just love the progression of the conversation around the COVID vaccines over the last couple of years. If you didn't want the first one, you're an anti-vaxxer. If you don't want the 5th one, well, look, it's not, well, I mean, I think you're just the general population. I'm not 100% sure. I should put a vote out and just see who is getting the 5th one. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I haven't got it. I'm not planning to get it. And you can't get the 5th one when you haven't had the first one. But Karl Stefanovic came out saying, look, it's probably not ideal. Remember when you said that 3 years ago, you just got in trouble on every single platform in the world? People would look at you like you're a psycho. Now a news host can come out and say, hey, look, here's what I think. I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was his program, came out and said, hey, here's how to deal with unvaccinated family members at Christmas. And I was like, what? Where are we living? What's happening? I guess history runs in funny segments like that, though, doesn't it? I'm listening to a book at the moment called The Four Turnings. So The Four Turnings is about, it's like a prophecy/history book for the United States, but it applies to every country in the world. And essentially, the overview, or the main sort of, what's the book about? William Strauss, I think the guy's name, he speaks about how history operates on an 80-year schedule. So essentially, within that 80 years, there's 4 20-year chunks. The first 20 years is a time of great hope and excitement. And then the next 20 years and the 20 years after that and the final 20 years is like a progressive decline into chaos and just absolute, just fuckery, essentially. Not his words, but mine. It was written in 1997, and he predicted, based on where we were on that timeline, that in 2005 to 2007, we would enter the final turning. So the final turning is that turning of just absolute chaos and fuckery, to quote myself. So he said that by 2027, this final stage of chaos and confusion will be done, and then we'll go back into this period of great hope and excitement and anticipation, so long as we survive that 20-year period. Because apparently, throughout the course of history, the final turning has gotten progressively more and more deadly. And based on the fact we've got nuclear weapons and things and a little bit of tension going around the world at the moment, he was saying, look, as long as we don't blow ourselves up, there's a good chance that there's great hope just around the corner after that. I thought that's interesting, isn't it? Because at the start of the book, he starts speaking about final turnings involving like banking collapses, like I thought of 2008 in the United States. And then I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I'm making this up, but he was speaking about gender and the different views of gender and just political tension. And he also speaks about the threat of countries succumbing to like a totalitarian government, which I thought I've got, like, you've started to get a little bit of a glimpse of how things like that can take place, like where certain things aren't allowed to be said. You can't speak about certain issues. You can speak about certain issues as long as, you know, you're on the government side or the health organization side or whatever. So I've definitely seen it. So it's given me like a whole heap of hope about the next couple of years. Like, so long as we can get to 2027 in pretty good health, then, man, hopefully you and I get to spend the next 20 years after that in a culture that's excited and filled with hope. So it's going to be very interesting to watch, because I don't know about you, but I get in these mindsets sometimes where I'm like, what is happening? Like, what's going on? The culture around me just seems to be crumbling. Everything falls apart. And then you hear people say, yeah, imagine what the world's going to be like for our kids. But I've never really thought about the fact that history operates in segments. And it kind of makes sense, because you look at seasons and there's summer, there's autumn, there's winter, there's spring. You look at time, like there's day, there's night. There's patterns in everything, like the ocean comes in, it goes out, the sun goes up, it goes. It's really interesting. And so, of course, the DNA of who we are or where we live is going to be dictated by certain rhythms and certain patterns. So if you've been a little bit weighed down by how crazy things look, take a little bit of hope in that. There you go. It's called the four turnings, or the fourth turning. I heard about it through a guy called Van Neistat on YouTube, who's Casey Neistat's brother. Casey Neistat was a vlogger that I got into a few years ago, because he's just a super creative guy behind a camera, which I've always appreciated. I've started listening to a book called The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I don't know what it was, but about 12 months ago, I started to get this real, I don't know, you know when sometimes you just sort of pull towards a certain character? Rick Rubin is one of those characters, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is I love so much about him. But Rick, he's a music producer. He's worked for a number of the biggest acts like Kanye and Jay-Z. I'm pretty sure he's had a little bit of Britney back in the early days. Like there's so many different artists that he's worked alongside. But he's this weird breed of person, the Chili Peppers, this weird breed of person where so many of his decisions is... He's not one of those guys who just sits there and thinks and analyzes and just goes over things rationally in his mind. He's like where a deep thinker meets a spiritual teacher, and he's somehow combined those two things so beautifully. And he's got this crazy ability to explain what creativity is. And through his own practice, through his own routines, he's just become one of the most highly respected music producers on the planet. As a result, maybe no surprise, I'm only an hour into his book. I listened to it on the way home from Melbourne last night. Dude, if you're up for a little bit of talk around creativity, The Creative Act, Rick Rubin, it's incredible. One of these books, he's got this ability just to be able to take really complex ideas around, like, I guess you just call it a nuanced subject like creativity, and put it into real simple words. And he's got this ability just to make it relevant to everyone as well. Like you and I, we might go, I'm not that much of a creative person. I just go to work each day, or I'm just on the tools, I'm a tradie or whatever. But he speaks about creativity as being so limited in our minds. Like creativity is actually like the creation, the putting in order the chaos of the world. Like if you're a Christian or from the Christian tradition, we speak about that God created the world, and we're called to like partner up with him a little bit and become co-creators, like go out with our different gifts and different skills and different talents and just keep that creation process going. And it kind of makes sense when you think of it like that. And I think too often, I've stolen this from him, he says too often creativity is limited to like a painting on the wall, or like a CD cover, or a picture that you've drawn, or a piece of pottery, or, you know, a piece of music, or a funny joke. But what we often forget is also creativity is like a lawnmower, and how a lawnmower is actually created through the imagination of someone, and it's got the ability to curtail or change the landscape of your backyard. I go, oh man, that's such a cool view of creativity. Like, I'd never thought of it like that. And the fact that he walks around with no shoes and cool glasses makes him very cool to me as well. I don't know. There's certain characters like that. Bob Dylan's another one where you look at it and you go, what is going on there? What's happening here? You're seeing something that a lot of us aren't seeing. And I think sometimes these people, they seem to be those kind of characters who they just sit back a little bit. They're not always talking. They're not always thinking, but they're just, I guess they're, it sounds wanky, but I guess like they're just really present, aren't they? Like they're just very in the moment. And when you're in the moment, there's like a whole heap of ideas that come to you. Rick Rubin was saying last night that we often take credit for the ideas that pop into our mind. Like an idea will pop into our head and we'll go, hey, what a great idea I just had. But he said that a lot of the time, he believes ideas aren't like inside of us, but outside of us. And we're like the antenna, and the antennas who are most finely tuned pick up ideas more readily and more quickly than other people. So he goes, he likes to think of it like a sushi train where there's different meals going around. And if you're just aware of the fact that there's meals going around, every now and then you can stop and look and go, hey, like I wonder what's inside that one. You can take the idea off the belt, you can have a look at it, have a play with it, and just see if there's anything there for you. And I thought, hey, that's really good. And he said, you've got to be cautious to make sure when an idea strikes you that you take a minute to write it down, because ideas, he believes, just come to birth when they're ready to be expressed. And a lot of the time, if an idea comes to us and we let it go, it's not uncommon for that idea to sort of be created or implemented by someone else. And it's not because they've copied our idea, it's just because that idea was ready to be born. I thought, hey, Rick Rubin, well said. I'm trying to get back on the green juices a little bit. Look at this. You always feel good, even though there's so much talk about how bad vegetables are for you, which is strange. I listen to Carnivore Aurelius on Instagram a little bit, and he's always going on about how plants are designed not to want to be eaten. Apparently they have some chemical response where, because they don't have teeth to fight off prey, they have this chemical response which is essentially a defense mechanism, and it's not good for our health. I heard someone say that a while ago, and then I heard a counter argument that though that's true, our body actually creates a counter response, which is like a strengthening element of our immune system. The health seems confusing like that, isn't it? Because there's just a whole heap of opinions. Pretty much my rule when it comes to health is like ask the average person on the street of Australia what they do to look after their health, and then do the opposite of that. And so for me, that means I don't want to go to work and sit in a cubicle all day. I'm just going to sit in front of a TV all night. I'm not going to eat most of the foods. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we're the fourth fattest nation in the world per capita. So the idea of taking health advice from Australians is, I'm not sure. Like it'd be like taking running advice from a fish. They don't really know what they're talking about. They might have all these ideas and opinions, but when it comes to the crunch, it's like they can't really implement it themselves. So anyway, I feel a bit bitter at the moment. There's like a little bit of bitterness that I can still tell from the last couple of years with, and I tell you this every week, so you're going to be sick of me saying it, but there's just so many people who've had opinions on what the right thing to do in regards to your health is that was so wrong that now I go, okay, it's going to be hard for me to ever listen to you again. So maybe I'll watch Channel 9 and whatever they say, I'll do the opposite. That seems like the healthiest approach. I'm not sure. Maybe that's just something that I need to work on that's not healthy itself. Who knows? Probably is. Why do I know? I'm just a good-looking bloke from Point Lonsdale sitting in his upstairs room with a green juice and a camera in front of him telling you a couple of stories, telling you a few things that have been going through my mind. I did 3 gigs last night. 3 gigs in the city. The last one, I went up to Eltham. It's good. I had the day to myself yesterday. I dropped my family off at the airport at like 10 o'clock in the morning. My gig wasn't until 7 p.m, so I had the whole day just to do whatever I want. So I went and bought some running shoes because I'm going to run the Melbourne Marathon like I told you guys if you were here last week. And then from there, I went and bought some sushi, visited a mate at his shop. I went up and sat in a park for an hour because it just seemed like the appropriate thing to do. Did a few stretches, watched a couple of skaters. Got real respect for skaters. I don't know what it is. I reckon if I could rewind the clock and go back to me as a 12-year-old, I would have really worked on my kick flips and grinds. Then did a gig at Eltham to a couple of comedians who had heard my jokes before. I was trying some new funny jokes out. Jokes that I thought were funny. One of the jokes I thought was funny was talking about the health world, like perennial tanning, where people go out and tan their asshole. Apparently it's good for your sperm health and like your immune health and just your overall well-being. But people get funny when they find out that you do it. Because I'd started trying to do it recently, and I thought I was alone a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'll just give it a go while the sun's shining. I'll get my pants down and put my asshole up to the sun. And the moment my asshole, was sort of kissed by the sunlight, a lady walked past me, and I was like, oh, this is bad timing. And she goes, oh, excuse me. I go, really? She goes, you can't do that at my cafe. I said, well, okay, fair point. You got me there. No, that's not even the sun. It's just the light to keep the pies warm. I go, okay, well, all right, that's women for you. That's just a silly joke. I told that last night, and my couple of mates who were in the room didn't laugh too much, but then went and performed it to a room full of Indians, lovely Indians, and they pissed themselves, which was very encouraging. Heading back down there tonight to Speak Easy HQ. If you're in the city and you're keen for a laugh, if you're keen for a variety act, go to Speak Easy. It's where the action's at, Flinders Street. Should be a little bit of fun. I'm up at about 8:30. You're up for a ride though. There's comedy, there's burlesque, there's jugglers. It's a very strange show, but I say that in the best possible way. So apart from that, I'm going to go finish this green juice. I'm taking my little man to the pool in about 15 minutes. And then after that, I'm going to make a coffee, jump in the car, drive down to Melbourne and try and make people laugh. So, hey, I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for stopping by. And, hey, I'll see you all here again next week. Hopefully. I said that last week as well. Finish that exact same way, hopefully. Got to have more confidence. Hey, ladies and gents, see you here same time next week.